There's something you keep calling overthinking, something that spirals in your head late at night when no one's watching. You replay every sentence, every text, every silence, every possible outcome. You analyze the past like you could rewire it. You dissect the future like you could control it. But the truth is, none of this is about thinking. It's about avoiding. Avoiding a truth so uncomfortable, so irreversible, that facing it feels like death. Because if you stop thinking for 1 second, you'd feel it. The reality you've been running from, the one you already know deep down, that it's over, that they don't care, that the job, the dream, the relationship, it's not what you thought it was, that staying means shrinking and leaving means losing, that you've been betraying yourself every single day just to feel safe. So instead, your mind becomes noise, endless loops. What if I'm wrong? What if they didn't mean it that way? What if I just try harder, wait longer, change more? But you're not confused. You're not lost. You're scared. Because knowing the truth means acting on it. And action costs comfort. It costs love sometimes. It costs who you were trying to be. But what if I told you the overthinking isn't your flaw? It's your protection. It's your excuse not to move forward. Because moving forward means letting go. And letting go feels like dying. And yet, the real death is staying in this limbo, trapped in a loop of thoughts while your life rots beneath the surface. This isn't intelligence. This isn't reflection. It's a prison made of fear and questions you already know the answers to. This video is not for the people who want to feel better. It's for the ones ready to hear the truth, to feel it, to finally stop pretending they don't know what to do. You're not overthinking, you're just ignoring the truth. And that ends now. It always starts the same way. A moment of uncertainty, a slight discomfort, a feeling you can't quite name. So your mind grabs it and begins tearing it apart. You tell yourself you're being careful, you're being rational. That thinking it through again and again and again will somehow protect you. But protection isn't what you're after. You're looking for permission. Permission to stay where it's safe, to not confront what you already know, to keep the illusion alive a little longer. You're not plagued by thoughts. You're haunted by a truth you refuse to face. That's the real reason you can't stop thinking. It's not about curiosity. It's not about being intelligent or reflective. It's about survival, emotional survival. Because the moment you stop thinking, everything you've been suppressing will rush in like a flood, and you're not ready to drown. Let's be honest. You already know they're not right for you. You already know the opportunity passed. You already know you've been dragging something dead behind you, hoping it will come back to life. But instead of grieving, you analyze, you reframe, you delay. And the longer you delay, the more complex the overthinking becomes. Because your mind is clever. It knows you don't want to feel, so it gives you a distraction. It hands you 99 possible outcomes, none of which require decision. It keeps you spinning in circles, and that spinning feels productive. It gives you the illusion of progress. But the truth is, you haven't moved at all. You're not thinking too much. You're avoiding too much. Avoiding the truth that if you stop trying to fix it, you'd have to accept it. Avoiding the guilt of walking away. Avoiding the pain of letting go. Avoiding the possibility that you wasted your time. Avoiding the version of you that trusted the wrong people and stayed too long. But what's the cost of that avoidance? Your peace, your time, your growth. Because every second you spend avoiding the truth is a second stolen from your future. From the life you could be building, the healing you could be starting, the love you could be receiving. Avoidance looks innocent. It looks like being careful, logical, cautious. But it's not. It's a form of self-betrayal. It's lying to yourself while pretending to be wise. Let's say it clearly. Overthinking is not wisdom. It's fear in disguise. You can mask it with big words. You can wrap it in emotional intelligence. You can call it deep thinking. But underneath it all, it's still just fear, dressed up as thought. So here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, what if I'm wrong? Start asking, what am I afraid to admit? Because the second you ask that, everything changes. You stop entertaining 100 what-ifs, and you start facing the one truth you already knew. Maybe you're not confused. Maybe you're just afraid that if you speak the truth, everything will fall apart. But what if everything falling apart is the first step to finally becoming whole? Think about this. When a building is infested with termites, you don't repaint the walls. You tear it down and start over. That's what real clarity demands. Not better thoughts, braver actions. The truth you're avoiding won't go away. It won't soften. It won't wait. It will sit in the corner of every decision, quietly sabotaging your life while you pretend you're just being careful. You don't need to think more. You need to feel more. You need to stop editing the truth so it fits your comfort zone. You need to stop hoping the situation will fix itself while you delay the inevitable. Avoidance has robbed you of enough already. Isn't it time to stop letting fear make your decisions? Because once you do, once you rip off the mask of overthinking and look at what's really underneath it, you'll realize the path forward was always there. It's just been buried under all the stories you told yourself to stay the same. You don't have a thinking problem. You have an avoidance problem. And that means the cure isn't clarity, it's courage. Most people think overthinking is about confusion, but confusion isn't the problem, it's the shield. The real problem is the decision you already know you need to make and don't want to. So instead of deciding, you distract yourself with endless thought loops. You weigh every possible outcome. You debate whether it's the right time. You gather opinions from people who can't live your life for you. You cling to hypotheticals and hope they'll somehow make the decision for you, but they won't. They never do. Because the thing you're truly afraid of isn't the decision. It's what the decision costs, the ending, the consequence, the loneliness, the unknown. So you stall. You try to perfect the timing. You try to buy more certainty, more reassurance, more proof. But no amount of mental rehearsal can protect you from the truth. There is no safe way to make a hard decision. It will hurt, it will cost you, and it will change you. And that's exactly why you're hiding in thought. Because as long as you're still thinking about it, you don't have to act. You don't have to leave. You don't have to let go. You don't have to say goodbye. You don't have to become someone new. So the mind becomes a hiding place, not a weapon, not a tool, just a foggy room where you can delay your evolution indefinitely. But you know what's worse than making the wrong decision? Never making one at all. Because indecision is not neutral, it's not passive. It slowly erodes your soul, it poisons your confidence, it breaks your identity from the inside. Every time you hesitate to make the choice you know is right, you teach yourself that fear is more important than freedom. And fear is a liar. It tells you the pain will be unbearable. It tells you you'll regret it forever. It tells you it's better to wait than to risk being wrong. But think about the things you regret most in life. Were they the decisions you made too soon? Or the ones you waited too long to make? You already know. You already know what you need to do. You've known it for days, maybe months, maybe years. And the only reason it still feels like overthinking is because you keep pretending it's not obvious. But it is. It's the job that no longer feeds you. It's the relationship that shrinks you. It's the routine that numbs you. It's the friendship you've outgrown. It's the comfort zone that started to rot. So here's the truth most people won't say. Overthinking is not a sign you need more time. It's a sign you've had enough time and you're afraid of what happens next. You're not analyzing, you're stalling. You're not looking for clarity. You're looking for permission, but permission never comes. At some point, you have to decide, will I live by fear or by truth? Because thinking has its place. But there comes a point where it stops serving you, where every new thought is just another excuse to stay exactly where you are. You can call it patience, you can call it logic, you can call it being smart or thoughtful or cautious. But deep down, you know the truth. You're not thinking anymore. You're avoiding choosing, because the moment you choose, things change. You step into the unknown. You risk pain. You risk being seen. You risk being alone. But you also risk being free. Overthinking gives you a sense of control. It gives you something to do. It fills the silence. It makes you feel like you're making progress when all you're doing is running in mental circles. But here's the cost of all that false comfort. Every day you delay a hard decision is a day you abandon the life waiting on the other side of it. So don't wait for more signs. Don't wait for it to hurt less. Don't wait for the fear to disappear. That day may never come. Sometimes you have to leap while the fear is still screaming. Sometimes you have to move forward while your heart is breaking. Sometimes you have to make the decision your future self will thank you for, even if your present self resents you for it. And when you finally do, when you stop overthinking and start deciding, everything begins to shift. The fog lifts, the loop ends, the noise quiets. Because the mind only races when the soul is begging for you to listen. So the next time you catch yourself overthinking, ask yourself, what truth am I distracting myself from? What decision am I refusing to make? And then make it. Not because you're ready, but because you're done pretending not to know. It doesn't feel like running. It feels like thinking. It feels like staying up until 3 a.m. with your heart pounding and your head full of scenarios. It feels like trying to solve a puzzle that keeps changing its shape. It feels like being stuck, but your mind is sprinting at full speed. But this isn't stillness, and it's not thoughtfulness. It's escape. Your mind is running, not forward, not toward a dream, but away. Away from pain, away from clarity, away from a version of you that has been silently screaming to be heard. Because when the truth hurts, the mind becomes a sanctuary of distraction. It throws you stories, loops, logic, hypotheticals. It builds you a world where anything is possible except peace. Because peace would require acceptance. And acceptance would mean the game is over. It would mean admitting that what you wanted isn't coming, that what you believed was a lie, that what you hoped for has already passed you by. So you run, you think in circles, you dig deeper into conversations that are already over. You play back every moment, searching for a way to change the ending. You imagine different outcomes, new beginnings, what-if versions of a life that doesn't exist anymore. But you're not solving anything. You're just staying busy enough not to feel. And isn't that the most dangerous kind of distraction? The one that feels like effort, but leaves you exactly where you started? You can go months like this, years even, living inside a mind that never stops moving, but never moves forward. That's the trick. It convinces you that because you're exhausted, you must be working. Because you're overwhelmed, you must be doing something important. But what you're actually doing is hiding. And what are you hiding from? Maybe it's the grief of something you never gave yourself permission to mourn, a version of you that's settled, a person who hurt you more than you'll admit, a future you're afraid to chase because the risk of failure feels like death. Whatever it is, it lives behind the noise, behind the over-analyzing, the researching, the second-guessing. And it's quietly pulling the strings behind every racing thought. Because no matter how fast your mind runs, it can't outrun the truth. It can't outrun the ache in your chest when you think about what could have been. It can't outrun the shame of knowing you didn't leave when you should have. It can't outrun the fear that maybe you're not who you thought you were. And yet, you keep running. Because if you stop, you'll feel it. You'll feel the weight. You'll feel the loss. You'll feel the betrayal of others, yes, but mostly of yourself. So you convince yourself you need more time. You label it as a phase. You pretend it's just a temporary season of confusion. But deep down, you know. This isn't a season. This is a pattern. And patterns don't break on their own. They continue until you finally sit still and ask, what am I running from? The answer will not be pretty. It won't be poetic. It will be raw, maybe ugly, maybe humiliating, but it will be yours. And that truth, the one you've buried under thought after thought, is the very thing that can set you free. The mind runs because the heart is stuck. It tries to think its way out of what can only be felt. And as long as you keep trying to outthink your pain, it will keep chasing you in every thought. So stop. Stop running. Stop rewriting the past. Stop trying to fix what is already broken. Stop trying to think your way into a reality that no longer wants you. Instead, sit with the thing you fear the most, the memory, the failure, the ending, the truth. Let it hurt. Let it wash over you. Let it say everything you've tried not to hear. Because that's where peace lives. Not in another thought, but in surrender. Not in control, but in honesty. Not in running faster, but in finally stopping. You're not overthinking, you're overhiding. You've been outrunning truths that were never meant to be avoided. They were meant to be faced, felt, released. And when you do, when you stop running and let the truth catch up to you, you'll realize something powerful. It's not the truth that destroys you. It's the running. Let's stop pretending. Let's stop acting like you don't know what the next step is. Like you're waiting for clarity, waiting for a sign, waiting for the right moment. Because the truth is, you already know. You've known for a long time. You know you need to walk away. You know you need to speak up. You know you need to stop forgiving someone who never asked for forgiveness. You know the version of yourself you've been holding on to is no longer real. And you know that if you keep living like this, you'll break. So no, you're not overthinking. You're not confused. You're not lost. You're just terrified of what the truth demands. Because the truth doesn't come softly. It doesn't show up with comfort or convenience. It shows up with fire. It shows up with endings. It shows up with grief for the life you thought you were supposed to have. It asks you to let go of people who once felt like home. It asks you to admit that you wasted time. It asks you to stand alone when all you wanted was to be held. And no matter how strong you are, that hurts. That's what you're really afraid of, not the truth itself, but the pain that comes with accepting it. The pain of knowing they'll never change. The pain of realizing you stayed too long. The pain of facing the fact that maybe it wasn't love, it was attachment. Maybe it wasn't purpose, it was distraction. Maybe it wasn't loyalty, it was fear. And that pain, it's sharp, it's deep. It cuts through every illusion you built to survive. So instead of feeling it, you numb it with thoughts, with theories, with endless analysis. You wrap your pain in logic so you don't have to live inside it. You turn your heartbreak into a hypothesis. You try to intellectualize what was meant to be felt. But the truth doesn't go away just because you hide behind your mind. It waits, and it whispers, and it slowly poisons everything you touch until you finally break open and admit it. I already knew. You knew they weren't right for you. You knew staying at that job was slowly killing your spirit. You knew that keeping quiet wasn't protecting anyone. It was just making you smaller. You knew what you wanted. You knew what you deserved. You knew what you needed to do. But knowing something and accepting it are not the same thing. So let's talk about the real issue, pain aversion. Because avoiding pain doesn't save you from it. It just delays it and makes it worse. The longer you avoid the truth, the more it costs you. It steals your time. It erodes your self-respect. It eats away at your identity. Pain is not the enemy. Prolonged self-betrayal is. You think you're protecting yourself by not facing it, but really you're keeping yourself trapped in a low-grade suffering that never ends. A quiet ache, a persistent numbness, a life that looks fine on the outside but feels hollow on the inside. And that's the trade-off you've made. Avoid immediate pain by sacrificing long-term peace. But what if you flipped it? What if you chose the short, sharp pain now, so you could finally breathe again later? What if you let it break you open, just enough for the light to get in? Because that pain you're so afraid of, it's not just destruction, it's transformation. It's the moment you finally stop lying to yourself. The moment you reclaim your voice. The moment you stop asking for permission to change. Pain is the cost of freedom, and you don't get to avoid one without losing the other. You already know what to do. You've just convinced yourself that knowing isn't enough, that you need more time, more signs, more preparation. But the truth is, you're not waiting for clarity. You're waiting for it to hurt less. And some things, they will always hurt, no matter when you do them, no matter how ready you feel. So do it now, while your heart is still beating, while your future is still within reach, while the weight hasn't crushed what's left of your hope. Rip the bandage, say the thing, make the call, close the chapter, burn the bridge if you must, because whatever pain comes after will be nothing compared to the pain of staying in a life that requires you to lie to yourself. You already know what to do. You're just scared it will hurt, and it will, but it will also heal you. There is a truth you've buried so deep, you can't tell if it's still real or if you imagined it. It started as a whisper, a flicker, a passing thought you tried to ignore, but it didn't go away. It crept into your quiet moments. It showed up in the silence between conversations. It echoed in the pause before sleep. That voice, the one that says, "This isn't right. This isn't love. This isn't your life." And every time it speaks, you do the same thing. You turn up the noise. You work more, scroll more, think more, talk to everyone except yourself. You call it overthinking. You call it anxiety. But underneath the panic, beneath the mental spiral, there's just one simple thing. The truth trying to surface. It's not trying to torment you. It's trying to free you. But it can't do that while you keep locking the door and calling it doubt. Here's the thing about truth. It doesn't yell. It waits. It whispers until you finally have no choice but to hear it. And by then, it's everywhere. It stains your joy. It contaminates your relationships. It taints every moment that should feel light with the heaviness of what you've been refusing to face. Because ignoring the truth doesn't erase it. It just gives it more power. It becomes resentment. It becomes numbness. It becomes bitterness at a life you quietly chose because you were too scared to change it. and eventually it starts destroying you from within. It eats at your confidence. It breaks your sense of identity. It makes you distrust your intuition because you've trained yourself not to listen. The longer you avoid the truth, the more it transforms, from a whisper into a wound. And then one day, you wake up and you don't recognize yourself. You're in a relationship that feels like a performance. You're working a job that deadens your soul. You're surrounded by people who only know the version of you that never said what needed to be said. And it all feels normal. It all feels routine. But inside, you're crumbling. Because something inside you is still whispering, still reminding you, this isn't it. Still begging you to listen. Still offering you the exit, if only you'd take it. But the longer you ignore that voice, the crueler life becomes. Not because life is cruel, but because you've silenced the one voice that could have saved you. Your own. And that's the tragedy, isn't it? That people don't fall apart because of the truth. They fall apart because they run from it for too long. You can hide from it with distractions, with logic, with fake smiles and self-help books, and one more excuse to delay what you already know. But it always finds you, in the quiet, in the mirror, in the way your chest tightens when you laugh too hard at something that isn't funny, in the way your heart breaks when they touch you and it doesn't feel like love anymore. The truth doesn't go away, it waits, and when it's ready, it rips through the silence like a scream. And by then, you don't get to walk away quietly. You don't get to choose how the damage unfolds. You don't get to rewind. All you're left with is the regret of knowing, I knew, I just didn't listen. So let this be your warning, not from fear, but from love. The longer you avoid the truth, the louder it becomes. And if you still refuse to listen, it will destroy everything until it's the only thing left. Your relationships will fall apart. Your self-worth will vanish. Your passion will dry up. And you'll wonder why everything hurts when all you ever did was play it safe. But safety that costs your truth is not safety. It's a slow death. It's 1,000 small silences that build a cage around your life. 1,000 nods when you should have walked away. 1,000 lies to yourself that sound like wisdom, but feel like betrayal. So stop waiting for the truth to go away. Stop thinking it'll soften with time. Stop assuming it'll hurt less later. It won't. The only thing that changes is how much damage it causes by the time you finally face it. And the cruelest part? That truth, the one you've been so afraid of, isn't your enemy. It's your liberation. It's your clarity. It's the beginning of everything real, but only if you stop pretending not to hear it, because the truth doesn't leave. It lingers, and eventually, it destroys what doesn't align with it. We've built our entire lives around the mind. We praise logic. We glorify intellect. We worship thinking as if it's the answer to everything. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. The mind was never designed to heal you. It was designed to protect you, to build walls around the parts of your heart you can't bear to look at, to create just enough distance from your pain so you can still function while quietly falling apart. The mind isn't the villain, but it's not the savior either, because you can't think your way out of what you refuse to feel. And that's the real tragedy of overthinking. It gives you the illusion of control, but in reality, it's the very thing keeping you stuck. You say you need more time, more clarity, more data, more certainty. But what you really need is to sit in the fire of your own feelings without trying to escape. Because no insight, no strategy, no amount of analysis will ever substitute for feeling the thing you've avoided your entire life. The grief, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the shame, the moment you first realized you were alone, the moment you begged for someone to stay and they didn't, The moment you promised yourself you'd never be vulnerable again because feeling hurt too much. That's what your mind has been shielding you from. Not the unknown, but the known. The ache that's already inside you. The memories that are too heavy to carry. So you spin thoughts instead of holding truth. But here's the problem. The more you think, the more disconnected you become. From your body, from your intuition, from your needs. You start to believe the lie that you're just too sensitive, or too emotional, or too dramatic. You gaslight your own soul into silence because the mind doesn't know how to hold pain. It only knows how to explain it. But some things can't be explained. They can only be felt and released. You can't fix grief. You can't solve heartbreak like an equation. You can't outthink the memory of what you never got. All you can do is feel it completely. Let it wash over you. Let it shatter the armor you've worn so long you forgot who you were without it. Because the real healing doesn't happen when you understand the pain. It happens when you allow it, when you surrender to it, when you stop trying to edit the story and just sit inside it, ugly and raw and honest. And maybe that's why you keep spiraling, why nothing ever feels resolved, because you're still trying to escape through the intellect instead of entering through the heart. In the heart, it doesn't speak in logic. It doesn't care about timelines. It doesn't care how smart you are. It only wants to be felt, to be held, to be heard. You think you're overthinking because you're deep, but maybe you're just afraid of being open, because being open means being touched. Being touched means being wounded, and being wounded again feels unbearable. So you choose safety. You choose the mind. You choose the fortress of logic and what-ifs and over-explanations. And you wonder why nothing changes. But it doesn't change because you never go deep enough to touch the wound. You dance around it, you talk about it, you write about it, but you don't feel it. And until you do, the cycle continues. Overthinking is the mind's way of saying, I'm scared to feel this. Please don't make me go there. But growth begins when you say, I hear you, and we're going there anyway. So stop running, stop thinking, stop hiding behind intellectual walls. Sit with your heart, ask it what it needs, ask it what it's holding, ask it what it's afraid to say out loud, and then let it speak, without judgment, without shame, without interruption. Let it scream. Let it cry, let it rage, because when the heart finally gets to speak, the mind gets to rest, and in that stillness, you heal. Not because you figured it out, but because you finally let yourself feel it out. The mind is brilliant, but it was never meant to carry what only the soul can hold. You're not stuck in thought, you're stuck in resistance. And on the other side of that resistance is the feeling you feared most and the freedom you've craved all along. The mind can't save you, not from heartbreak, not from grief, not from yourself, but your heart, it can. If you let it speak, if you let it hurt, if you let it be human. This is the part no one wants to hear, not the comfort, not the it's okay, not the gentle encouragement wrapped in soft words and careful tone, but the truth, brutal, unforgiving, clear. You're not overthinking, you're lying to yourself. And the lie sounds like, I don't know what to do. I'm just confused. I need more time. But what it really means is, I'm afraid of what happens if I admit the truth. Because once you admit it, really admit it, everything has to change. And change is terrifying. So you stay in your head. You live in the gray area, the mental fog, the place between knowing and doing. You replay conversations that already ended. You analyze people who already showed you who they are. You obsess over decisions that were made for you by your own silence. You torture yourself with questions that don't need answers because you already have them. You just don't like what they reveal. So here's the reality. Overthinking doesn't end when you find the perfect thought. It ends when you're finally willing to face the truth without flinching. The truth that they're not coming back, that staying won't fix it, that you're the one standing in your own way, that the person you've been blaming doesn't owe you closure, you owe it to yourself, that you're not waiting for answers, you're waiting for a different truth, a softer one, a kinder one that hurts less. But that truth doesn't exist. There's only this one. The truth that your life is a reflection of what you allow. The truth that avoiding pain is what's creating all your suffering. The truth that your peace is waiting right behind the thing you're most afraid to feel. So stop. Stop asking the same questions. Stop searching for a new angle to an old answer. Stop acting like you're not strong enough to do what you already know you must. You are strong enough. You always were. You're just waiting for someone to make it easier. But no one's coming. No one is going to climb inside your mind and silence the noise for you. No one is going to rip off the mask you've glued to your face. That's your job. That's your moment. That's your responsibility. Because healing doesn't come from a better thought. It comes from a deeper truth. And here's the deepest one of all. Your life doesn't change when you know what to do. It changes when you finally decide you're done pretending not to. You're not here to think your way through life. You're here to live, to feel, to hurt and rise and fail and risk and become. And yes, feeling is dangerous. Yes, honesty is painful. But so is living a lie. So is waking up in a life that doesn't fit you. So is holding on to people who've already let go. So is sacrificing your peace for the illusion of certainty. You've tried everything else. You've talked in circles. You've written the pros and cons. You've stayed in rooms that suffocate you because the exit felt too permanent. But what if the exit is the only way forward? What if the truth isn't your enemy, but your escape? Because the moment you look it in the eye and say, I know this isn't right, and I'm done pretending it is, you get your life back. Not the perfect life, not the painless life, but a real one. One built on truth, on integrity, on courage. So take a deep breath, look at your reflection, and ask the question you've been avoiding. What do I already know that I'm too scared to say out loud? Then say it, write it, feel it. Let it break you if it must. Because sometimes you have to let something break in order to finally stop breaking yourself. And when you do, when you step into the fire of truth and stand there without running, you'll find something extraordinary. Silence, stillness, peace. Not because you figured it all out, but because you finally stopped lying. That's where overthinking ends. Not with an answer, but with honesty. Brutal, liberating, gut-wrenching honesty. And after that, you move, you act, you live. Not perfectly, not fearlessly, but truthfully. And that's the only thing that was ever missing. If you've made it this far, you already know this video wasn't meant to give you clarity. It was meant to remind you of what you've been avoiding, the truth you buried beneath 1,000 thoughts, the decision you postponed by calling it confusion, the emotion you numbed by calling it logic. But underneath all of that, you've always known what hurts, what has to end, what you deserve, what you've been pretending not to see. Overthinking didn't show up to protect you. It showed up to delay you, to keep you safe but small, to keep you stable but stuck. And the longer you live in your head, the more your heart shrinks into silence. The more your soul gets tired of waiting, The more your life becomes a thought experiment instead of a lived experience. But you're not here to think your way through everything. You're here to feel, to choose, to act. And yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will shake everything you thought you were holding together. But sometimes the falling apart is the only way forward. Sometimes the chaos is just clarity that's finally been unleashed. So don't waste another moment in a loop you already know the exit to. Don't spend another night trying to solve a question that only needs honesty to answer. Ask yourself, what have I been pretending not to know? What would I do if I wasn't afraid of the pain it might bring? What would change if I finally admitted the truth out loud? Because the second you do, the noise begins to fade, the fog begins to lift, and the life you've been waiting for, it starts. Not when the thinking stops, but when the truth begins. So no, you're not overthinking. You're just ignoring the truth. And now, you're not anymore.